please tell me your name and rank?
All right. So my name is Protective Service Inspector Brenton Lou.
Fabulous. And can you please tell me your current role and position?
Yes, I'm currently the Inspector for Operations for SIAF, which is the Solomons International Assistance Force. We currently provide support to the Royal Solomon Island Police Force with their operations day to day and leading up into the Pacific Games and the National General Election in next year.
And just I want to go back now and talk about ADF before I ask you a bit more about what you're doing for us in the AFP. Can you tell me about what you did in the ADF?
Yeah, so I ended up doing probably about 12 years in the ADF total, about 5 years full time, and then 7 years in the reserves. I started off enlisted as an infantry soldier. I spent a couple of years and did selection and went to commandos shortly after that. So the rest of my career within the ADF for the last probably 10 years was as a commando, both in 4A Commando and 1 Commando Regiment.
Great. And in terms of, finishing that, that 12 years in ADF doing, a range of different things, what is it that made you decide to leave the ADF and transition to the AFP?
It's probably going to be the same reason that I'm talking to you right now, is that I know that, and without denigrating the work that ADF do, but a lot of people get frustrated with some of the things that occur in the ADF and feel that they come to the end of their experience. My initial thing was to join and do service for my country. But having said that, at some point I got towards the end of my 5 years and decided that I'd had enough of that. So moving, I suppose, into or transitioning out of defence can be difficult and quite daunting. So I started my own business. I was a handyman for about 12 months, but I missed the camaraderie, the mateship that goes along with wearing a uniform either as an airman, a seaman, or as a soldier. And I felt like I missed that, and the AFP sort of gave me that. I suppose getting back into uniform and creating those bonds again with like-minded people.
Excellent. And can you tell me a little bit about your experiences as a PSO and kind of what that transition was like and the opportunities that you've had?
So I came across in about 2001, back when it was the Protective Service, and obviously there was amalgamation a couple of years later. My second week of my recruit course was September 11, which was an interesting time. And that sort of changed the face, and even to put the point of everything I've done since then has been centred around that, as I'm sure a lot of ADF members would know as well in the ADF. So my experiences, I spent the first couple of years in uniform at Sydney Airport. I then transitioned across and became an air security officer, so an air marshal. I did that for about 10 years and then came back across to uniform around 2012. In terms of experiences, obviously as an air marshal, you got to do a lot of flight travel around Australia, around the world. I will say I've probably done a lot more travel in the AFP than I have when I was in defence. I did have a lot of have had a lot of opportunities as I have now in the Solomons. I've been to Solomons several times now, Nauru, Christmas Island, PNG. So I've been as a PSO to a lot of places, and then within Australia as well. There's been a lot of deployments, but the experiences, I've worked at a lot of different regions as well, and it's a little bit different in terms of posting in the ADF, where you get posted, you get told you're going there. For AFP, you work in a location, and that's your geographical location. If you choose to work other places, you can. So I've worked in Perth, Canberra, Sydney, and then deployed all over Australia as well. So the opportunities for me as a PSO, I've had those experiences in terms of meeting different high office holders, working for them, protecting them, is very valuable, and it comes along with some kudos, I suppose. It's very rewarding working in those positions, protecting those people, and protecting critical infrastructure around Australia and around the world, specifically the Pacific at the moment. So,
Excellent. And you've kind of touched on this, but what is the best thing about being a PSO?
the best thing about being a PSO is there's a real mateship and bond within the PSO cohort. So within protection, a good day is when nothing happens, because it means that we've done our job right. There are times when you have to step up and do, put your training into practice. And I'll be honest, it's not every day. And the PSO job is a specialty role, which I think that it takes the right type of mind and trained person that a Defence Force person brings to the table, because they're highly trained, they're motivated, and they know how to motivate themselves in some of those times when it may not be so busy. But it is rewarding to have the mateship that you have and the camaraderie that you have between your brothers and sisters in protection, that you know that they're standing next to, protecting the Governor General, protecting the Prime Minister, or being in the Solomon Islands, working alongside our brothers and sisters in the RSIPF.
And this is the final question before I ask if there's anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't touched on. But what would you say to current ADF members that are seeking a bit of a career change or looking to transition out of the ADF?
I suppose the thing that I found, and I don't think this will change, is that it gives you an opportunity to be around like-minded people. It can be daunting leaving the ADF. I found that. And when I did leave and I went to a civilian job, so sole employee, I really did miss that, being in uniform and being next to brothers and sisters that were there for a common goal. It can be daunting, but taking that step into a role in the AFP, specifically into protection, can be rewarding, and it can fill that void that you may be looking for when you leave the ADF.
Excellent. And look, I'm not sure if there's anything else that you'd like to add that you haven't, mentioned based on the questions I've asked you. But yeah, feel free if there's anything now. Otherwise, I will end the recording.
That's right. Probably the last thing I'd say is that I know a lot of people, when they cut ties with the ADF, that they want to completely cut ties. The AFP is an extremely good employer in terms of support for the reserve network. So it's something that you would want to, if I was to tell an ADF member leaving the ADF, that they don't burn all those bridges or put HE on all those bridges as they leave. It's important to probably keep those ties a little bit after you leave, and you can still do reserve service, which is still rewarding without all the full-time rigmarole that goes on, as I know. But it is a good employer to do reserve service with, and it's something to keep in mind if you do leave the ADF and you come across the AFP.